Now, as we've been hearing, Britain has joined those countries to recognise Libya's rebel Transitional Council as the country's new government. Let's get reaction to this and speak to Josh Rogin, an analyst at US-based Foreign Policy magazine. He's been researching the profiles and backgrounds of both the rebels and the members of the Libyan National Transitional Council. He joins us now from Washington. Just explain to us, it is of course a very complicated situation, but just explain to us briefly, if you can, the members of the Transitional Council.
Basically, the leadership of the TNC, as they call it, is made up of three main elements. One are people who have been living in opposition to the Gaddafi regime inside Libya, perhaps at great personal sacrifice for them and their families for years, and have therefore earned their right to represent the rebels. Then there are members of the regime who have defected, who bring with them a lot of institutional knowledge and experience and are helping the rebels in various ways. And then there are expatriates, people who have fled from Libya, sometimes for decades, and who have been extremely successful financially and professionally abroad, who are now returned to Libya to help the cause. So all three of these elements are big parts of the TNC. It seems to be working relatively well together under the circumstances as the TNC expands and grows.
Now, what do you make of the chairman? Because Mustafa Mohammed Abdul Jalil, he actually was Libya's justice minister. Do you think he'll be accepted by the people as a former member of Colonel Gaddafi's regime?
Sure. Well, most of the people that I talk to in Benghazi say the same thing, that Chairman Jalil is known as sort of the anti-Gaddafi, whereas Colonel Gaddafi is charismatic, flamboyant, egotistic. Jalil is seen largely as none of these things. He's a very soft-spoken technocrat. He has been successful so far in rallying most of the rebels to his support, but he's not viewed as someone who wants to maintain control or serve as a top leader in the next iteration of the Libyan government. He's seen very much as a transitional figure. He seems comfortable in that role, so we're expecting him to be successful in this transitional period and then hand over power to whatever is to come next, whether it be an elected government or something else.
Now, we've been hearing that Britain has recognised the TNC. I guess its next step is to get UN recognition.
Exactly. We've had a steady stream of recognitions, Britain today, the U.S. government a couple of weeks ago, and these are all incremental but positive steps in the right direction as far as the rebels are concerned. But as you mentioned, there's not a whole lot of money that is released by the simple recognition of the British government or the U.S. government for that matter. A majority of the Gaddafi funds, so over $30 billion by some estimates, is frozen by UN sanctions. Those sanctions currently apply to both the rebels and the Gaddafi regime. And those sanctions have to be amended or tweaked or figured out in some legal fashion. And the only real logical way to do that is to seek recognition by the UN. That doesn't seem to be happening in the near term, but that is the rebels' main goal. And that drive will be strengthened by the recognition of major countries such as Britain and the US.
All right, Josh Rogin, we have to leave it there. Josh Rogin, analyst at the US-based Foreign Policy magazine. Thanks for your insight there. Now, thousands of people have gathered in Trafalgar Square in London to mark a year until the opening ceremony of the London Olympics. Across the city, the Aquatic Centre, the last of the major venues to be completed, was opened. The BBC's David Bond reports on a day that's been a showcase for the organisers' achievements so far and also looks ahead to the challenges that still remain.